Hello, my dears! Welcome to a bit of an unorthodox video. I thought it'd be fun to bring you all in the process of what it looks like when I make one of my disability dramaturgy deep dives, so you can see what the research process looks like, how long these take me, and learn a little bit about dramaturgy along the way. Maybe I don't know. I don't actually know where this is going to go or what's going to happen because every project that I end up working on is completely different. But yes, so. The project I'm working on at the time of this video, I'm doing double duty right now. So I'm finishing Next to Normal. I have a piece of that to write. Also, it's June 12th, by the way. So the Next to Normal video is coming out on July 13th, so that it will be effectively done 1 month before. Fun thing about me, my work schedule for the YouTubes is that in the first 2 weeks of the month, I do all of the videos, so reviews, dramaturgy deep dive, and the videos, other videos, for the next month. So I do 2 weeks of fully working, and the next 2 weeks I do other stuff and just kind of like chill and work on other projects with my other jobs, so that, you know, I'm not like researching constantly because it gets kind of exhausting. So everything is done very much in advance. So I'm finishing Next to Normal now, which will be done a month before it comes out, and then I'm starting Violet now. I would probably wait until probably like end of June to start it, maybe early July. But I know that this is a project where I want to be interviewing people for it because I've done preliminary research already, and there's not a lot of information online about this show. Sometimes when I talk to one person, they end up introducing me to somebody else, who ends up introducing me to somebody else. So what I think is just like, oh, I just need to get one interview done, ends up being like several interviews. So I want to make sure that I have time for all of that because the schedule of theater people is always like you're super booked or you're super free and there's no in between. And so I want to make sure that I can find my way into one of those gaps so that I can actually talk to the people I want to talk to and get this video out on time, because I got really stalled on Wicked, I got really stalled on Hunchback, I got really stalled on something else, and it's very stressful and I don't love it. So I am getting very ahead of this one, and then I'll probably continue to my next couple also include interviews, so I will probably start doing my dramaturgy deep dives 2 months in advance while the rest of my videos are 1 month in advance, because that just makes more sense. And also I have all of my videos planned up until the end of October as of right now. Not my reviews, but I have everything else planned. This is how I work very much in advance, just so that I can organize things and plan ahead, because I'm a very busy person. So anyway, video, yes. So I'm doing a little research vlog. I'm going to bring you along on that process on what all of this looks like. I'm super stoked about it. I've already done some things, so I'm going to tell you about those, and then we will reconvene when I get to a further point. So I would consider today to be day one of research for this project. Now, again, I'm doing it a little differently this month than I normally do. Typically, I would just kind of say 2 days back to back. This entire day I'm going to research for both entire days, and that usually is the majority of what the research is that I do. It usually only takes me about 2 full days, so probably about 24 hours of research for each one of these projects, and then I will let it simmer in my brain for a little bit, and then I'll come back to it so that I can really process it and think about it more, and then I will often rewatch the show and revisit it with a new lens, so then I get better commentary by the end of it. But because I'm doing 2 things at once right now, and I'm also working on something else, we're gonna break it up into probably like at least 3 or 4 different days. And the other thing about Violet in particular is that there are not any slime tutorials of it. I'm gonna call them slime tutorials in this video, thank you. Now, the ethics of slime tutorials are sketchy at best, and we won't get into that right now. But as a researcher, if I want to see a show that is not currently open on Broadway, or like a specific historical show, right, I have 2 options. Option 1 is a slime tutorial, so that's something I'm going to find somewhere online and watch through, and are usually meh quality. And the second option is going to the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts, and there they have an archive called the Theater on Film and Tape Archive. I just call it TOFT because that's what it is. And TOFT has like every single show that has ever been on Broadway, filmed. It's like usually about 2 or 3 camera filmed. So it's like good quality. It's not pro shot quality, but it's fairly pro shot quality. And they have all of those in their archive. And so I have a special archives account as a researcher. And so I can go to the New York Public Library and make an appointment, and then I can go to the Theater on Film and Tape Archive, and they sit you down at like a computer, and there's like an old-fashioned TV, and they like put in the DVD for you, and then you watch through that, and you can like pause it to take notes and whatnot, and you can rewind a little bit if you need to. But you're only allowed to go to the archive to see a specific show once. So if I were like, oh, I'm researching Violet and I want to see the show, and I go in, I only have that one time to go see that specific production of Violet. So I actually prefer using slime tutorials, even though they're less good quality, because it gives me the chance to rewatch them, reabsorb them, see them through different light, scroll back significantly and look at moments, which I'm not able to do when I use that archive. So I typically use both. I will go to the New York Public Library to see it, and then if there is a slime, I will use that to like check my own work effectively. But Violet does not have any of the major productions, which is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I know it's a smaller musical anyway. Loud airplane noises. Okay, less loud airplane noises. Which is totally fine. Like, this has happened for me with projects before. Sweeney Todd, specifically, I had to go to the library like 3 different times. But it does mean that this is going to take longer for me to research, because I am going to have to travel, 30 minutes from here, I think, and go through that process, which I will bring you on that process. And that's one of the reasons that I am filming this one in particular, so that I can show you guys what that process looks like, because it's really interesting, really cool. But yeah, so anyway, I already went through, I went through like the internet, and I didn't find anything, so I went straight to TOFF to see what versions they had. They have the original 1995 workshop at Lincoln Center, the 1997 musical when it was off-Broadway at Playwrights Horizons, and then the 2014 Roundabout production, which is the revival. So I can watch all of those, which is super exciting. But I do need to plan that into my schedule so that I can see all of them. And because I only have one chance to see the show, this is also what happens when I'm reviewing something that is open on Broadway. I only have one chance. So I finish absolutely all of my research before I go see it, because I only have that one chance. So like with Next to Normal, I started by watching the show first and getting initial impressions without any other context, and then I did all of my research, and then I watched the show again. But for this project, I am going to start by reading the script and then doing all of my research, and then going and watching the different versions of the show. And I think I'm going to use the Playwrights Horizons version as the like original, and keep that as my baseline, and then compare the revival and compare the workshop to that one as my base production. So yeah, clearly this is already a lot of thought. So I did that. I figured out which ones I need to watch and what their call numbers are. So once I know where I'm at in research and where I have time to go down to the library, I will email them and say, hey, can I have an appointment, and go do that. So I did that. That's done. I found all of the sources I want to read. So the way that works is I will literally, I always pull up the review roundup, like Playbill usually does a review roundup for every show that's opened on Broadway in the last like 30 years. So I pull up the review roundups. I know I want to read all the reviews to see what people were talking about at the time. Often Reddit threads are a really great place where people will be talking about niche issues within a show. So I will look to see if there's anything on Reddit of people discussing that, because that also gives me more of a, what is the cultural understanding of this piece? How are people talking about this specific issue within the community and outside of the community? So that's really helpful. And then I literally would just Google like disability in X musical and see what comes up. And then if anything sparks interest, I will open those in new tabs. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 15 tabs open right now. And we'll see if any of them actually have anything interesting. Sometimes I'll read like 30 different things, and then only like 10 of them out of my sources, because a lot of them just don't apply to what I'm doing at all whatsoever. But normally I'll read these things, and then this will bounce me to new ideas off of that. So that's not the end all be all of what I'm going to end up reading, but it's a starting point. That's my starting reading list, and then I'll work from there. So I have all of those open so that I can see that. So that's good. I know which ones I'm going to watch. Great. That's good. I like to keep all the tabs open so that I can like see where I'm at, because that helps with my brain rather than having them as like a list on a piece of paper. I enjoy having all the tabs open. So that's also a thing that I've done. So the last thing that is the actual very first step. This is all of the prep work, right? So the prep work is done. Now the next step after this is to read through the Wikipedia page. Now, Wikipedia as a source that's a conversation to be had. But it's really helpful in giving you a basic overview of what is the public knowledge on this piece. So, oh, I didn't know there was a West End production. Or like, oh, these are the famous productions of the show. These are the interesting things that have happened. This is the very basic plot. So it helps me with that to just get an overview of the show. So I always, once I get all of this stuff sorted, I will then read through the Wikipedia page as my initial source. This is my Next Normal Wikipedia page. And all of this information, none of it will end up in the video unless it has been cross-checked by minimum 2 other sources. Everything that I do has to be cross-checked, so it needs to show up in 2 or 3 different sources for me to say it in a video. And then when I'm turning this into other research, I have an even more stringent source checking rules for myself. But for videos, I leave it a little bit more lax because it's a different academic discussion. But anyway, so I go through the Wikipedia page and I learn the very basic information about the show just to give me an overview of what the heck is going on, and then I can move from there into the more in-depth pieces of it and break off of that, because that usually will give me a heads up of like, there's an interview somewhere where this guy said this, I need to find that. There's an interview where this guy said this, I need to find that. So it's really helpful in showing me where to go in my research and what already exists and what cultural conversations are happening around something. So that's the first step that I'm going to be doing as soon as I finish this video. The other thing is, you're probably like, Sydney, why are you holding up loose leaf paper? This is my other Sydney trick. It's new, it's recent. I've only been doing it for like the last 4 months. So not that recent actually. But I take all of my notes on loose leaf paper. I have this lovely clipboard here that has just like chunks of loose leaf paper. And if you're like, Sydney, you're wasting paper, what are you doing? Get a notebook. I used to collect binders when I was younger, and I can't tell you why. I just really liked like thick chunks of notebook paper because it was very sensory friendly to write on. And so I literally in my room at home have just like piles of notebook paper, of binder paper. So I had my mom mail it to me and I have a giant bag of it, and I am slowly working through my pile that I've acquired from like middle school. So I'm using the paper I already previously wasted. But anyway, I like to write everything out by hand rather than making digital notes. I used to make digital notes and then I would move everything around and I would make my outline and then I would write the script from there. But that became very overwhelming. It's very overwhelming to organize information that way. And so instead, I will write it all out longhand and organize it by category. So like I only have 2 pieces of paper for Next Normal here. That's concerning. But this one is my notes from the entirety of watching the Next Normal Broadway production, and this is my notes entirely from the Wikipedia, and then I have like disability notes and all that kind of stuff over there somewhere. I'm assuming, I don't actually know where it is. I remember where I've written it so I can find my notes easier. I remember where everything is organized, and then I will turn these chaos pieces of paper into less chaos pieces of paper, and I will write out like a more cohesive, okay, all these notes become a more cohesive note, and then that cohesive note will turn into the outline that's on my laptop, so that I don't have way too many words all over the place. Because one of the things I was researching, I ended up with like 13 pages of my Google Doc of notes, and I was like, I can't handle this. So now I have physical pieces of paper, which I much prefer. I do not have anywhere to store them as of this moment. They are just loose leaf piles of paper around my room, which is an issue because I do plan to come back to all this research at some point and turn it into something. So maybe by the end of this video I'll have acquired like a file folder or something for it to live in. But yeah, so I think that's everything about the beginning of this. The rest of this video is probably going to be just as chaotic and bad sound quality and bad film quality as this bit was. I don't even know how long it's going to end up being, but I thought it would be interesting to show you what my process looks like. and thanks for coming along on the adventure. I hope that you find this interesting. And if you want to learn more about disability dramaturgy and disability theater media history, I have my whole playlist of them. I'll put it up here. I think this is the left of the screen. If it's not up here, it's over here. And you can check those out. I make one a month, and it's a lot of work. I'm also working on other dramaturgy stuff behind the scenes that you probably won't see for a couple years. But yeah, cool stuff. I really enjoy this. And if you have any questions about disability dramaturgy as well, drop in the comments and I will be happy to answer, because it's a very niche little thing that I do. Yeah, cool. I'm gonna go read some Wikipedia pages and finish writing next to normal. I need to do that, and then I will get back to you. The absolute horror of having to see straight hair Sydney, my sincere apologies. Welcome to day 2 of Violet research. I finished next to normal yesterday, and it took way longer than expected, so I didn't actually get anything done. But this morning I read through the Wikipedia page. That was step 1. That piece of paper is somewhere. I'll find it eventually. And then I read through the script, and I want to show you what my notes look like for this section of the process, because that was like my first time really digging into the show itself, and that usually involves several different pieces of paper. So we have the script piece of paper. These are the notes that I took reading the script. And then I will have, whoa, there's a fan on me, so things are flying. And then I have my disability page. So while I'm reading the script and taking notes, if I have disability specific thoughts about narratives that I'm seeing, about whatever, I'll put them onto this page so that they're in one location. I also have the fix page. The fix page is just my ideas of changes that could be made to the show, or things that I would do if I were to stage it. I don't have many options for this one because this show's actually like pretty darn solid. Haven't had one of those in a while, which is really nice. I don't have a lot to critique. But also, that's the other thing. I'm at about the part of research for these videos where I start to panic that maybe I don't have a lot to talk about, maybe I don't have interesting things to talk about. I was the kind of person in English class growing up who like always missed all the metaphors all the time, and now I pick up on them because, you know, media analysis is my job and I have studied how to pick up on those things, but sometimes I still feel like I miss the point of stuff, and it gets very frustrating, and I always get nervous that I'm like, I don't actually understand it and whatever. So I'm kind of in that stress mode a little bit, where I'm like, I don't actually understand it. Like, I do get it, I understand it, but I feel like I don't understand it enough. But that always dissipates a little bit more as time goes on. I'm going to, after I finish showing you guys what I've done, and then, yeah, then I'm going to listen to the soundtrack, and I found a film. There's a short film from the 80s. I'm going to watch the short film, and then I'm going to be done with research for today and let this simmer in my brain, and then tomorrow I will read through all of the tabs that I've opened, all of those sources, and those usually will kind of give me different ideas of how other people perceive the piece, which will help me organize my thoughts around how I talk about it, so then I'll feel a little bit less lost and overwhelmed and like I don't have anything to talk about. I mean, I have something to talk about, but I don't have a lot. I'm also used to working on shows that have like a lot of disparate pieces to discuss, and this one only really has like 3. So I'm not sure where we're gonna go with this one. But yeah, so that's gonna be my primary project for tomorrow, is to get that done and get like 2 other things done. And I'll bring you on that journey when I get there. But yeah, so I did that. That was reading the script, so that's where all those pieces of paper came from. I also have a questions page. Questions page, usually I only make if I know I'm gonna be interviewing people. Again, I don't have a lot because we're still very early. But generally questions that I have around what I've learned and things that are unanswered, and that will continue to grow as time goes on. And then Violet is based on a short story, so I read the short story, so these are my notes from that as well. And yeah, so that's what I have thus far. Gonna do soundtrack next, and then I'm gonna watch the film. I also am so happy to report that I did get a folder to organize my notes. It's lavender, it's very pretty. So now I have a place to actually store these things rather than random piles around my room, which is very good and very wonderful. But yeah, there you go. That's day 2 of research. That wasn't very interesting, but there you go. I'm done with the things that I could do by myself right now. I am nowhere near done with the actual project. The project is like many more days of work, but today's day 3 of research, and I read all of the tabs that I had open, which was like I think I said 20, something like that. I really only found helpful information in approximately like 8 or 9 of them. So those are the ones that are gonna end up in my sources, because you can only put so many things into a YouTube description. So if I were writing an academic paper, I would include everything that I read, but this is a different situation. Anyway, yeah, I read all those things. Most of them were just like reviews or people talking about the show that got me. Why is my camera like slipping? What's happening here? That kind of answer some of my questions about how people are viewing the show and what they think the show is about. For me, finding a lot of people saying like, this is what I got out of the show helps me to figure out, you know, where I'm going with what I have to say. The camera's still once again slipping. This is a disaster. To be fair, I did rest it on a pillow, so this is totally on me. Anyway, so I now have all of my notes done. I'm just gonna hold this. That's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna hold it. Great. Good job, self. So notes are done. That's great. Amazing. The other thing that I did is that I have this beautiful document, which as of now, you know that I have a Patreon, and if you're on the top tier of my Patreon, you have access to this document. It is my representation timeline, where I put in all of the information about the show. So like, everything that I've ever reviewed or broken down on this channel is on that timeline with the various dates for the shows. I'll put like, this is when they had their first workshop, this is when they did this and that. So I have all of those on there, so that I can see where it fits in the musical theater canon and how it lines up with other disability things that I've reviewed and looked through. So that's really helpful. So I put that in. So that's done. The research is done. I listened to the soundtrack. Well, I listened to the 2014 one first, and then I realized that they made changes, so I had to listen to the original one, which was great because it did help me figure out what some of the changes are. I'm not going to have my script with me when I go to the library, so it's nice to figure out what some of the changes were by myself here that I'm not going to be able to find out as precisely when I'm just watching the shows at the library. But anyway, that's everything that I've done thus far. I have my emails ready to send out to the people I want to talk to. I'm going to do that on probably Monday, because emailing somebody on the Friday before the Tony Awards in the theater industry is not a good idea, so I'm waiting on that. But yeah, on today's episode of Terrible Camera Angles with Sydney, I forgot to vlog my first trip to the Theater on Film and Tape archive at the New York Public Library. Whoops! But this is, I just got back from my second trip there. And basically the way that works, so I have my library card, which is over there. I'm not going to grab it right now. But basically, you get your library card for New York, and then you get a like specific research account on the interwebs, and you become like a researcher in their files. And then you have access to the various things for various research purposes. And then you go to the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts, which is in Lincoln Center. I took a little clippy of what it looks like right now. So this is Lincoln Center right now in the summertime. There's concerts in the middle, so there's stuff in the middle. That theater on the left is where the Tony Awards were the other day. And then if you go to the right and straight ahead, which, oh look, another angle. That's Juilliard. Hi, Juilliard. And this is the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts. And then you walk into the front door and they check your bag and you're like, great, thanks. And then you go up to the third floor and you give them all your stuff. They like coat check all your stuff. So I gave them like my backpack, and so I just had my clipboard with my notes on it and like a fidget toy and my phone to keep track of time. And then you go in and you go into the Theater on Film and Tape archive, and I had an appointment. I made my appointment via email. You can call them or email. I prefer to email because then I can keep track of stuff. So I emailed them, and then so I knew I had my appointment at a certain time, and I showed up and I said, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm here to watch this. And they said, oh my gosh, amazing. I was at station 17 the first time, and I was at station 1 this time. And then you go to the station and you sit down and you put on the most uncomfortable headphones in the entire world, and you sit in a chair that makes your back hurt. And also the room is usually very cold, and it's a great time. It's so much fun. You can see why I don't use it unless I really have to. And then there's like a monitor so you can control stuff. So then you hit play, and then like if it's an Act 1 and Act 2 disc, after Act 1 is done, you say ready for Act 2, and then the people, I think they're downstairs, will put it in. So you like don't touch anything. They run the whole thing themselves, but you can like pause and play it and control volume from where you're sitting. It's a very cool system. So anyway, I did that the first time, and I saw the Playwrights Horizons production. The end of the file was corrupted, so I didn't get to see the last like 10-15 minutes of the show. I think it was about 10 minutes, so that's sad. And And then I went back today and I got to see the revival, which, like, I think I told you in one of the previous videos beforehand about how I always have an existential crisis where I'm like, I don't have enough to talk about with this. There's not a lot to discuss when I just, like, look at conversations and look at the script. And then seeing the show 2 times now, I was like, oh, there's so much I can talk about. I'm really excited to talk about this. And I have a lot of questions, and I'm really stoked about it. So that was really nice, really wonderful, and it's amazing how scripts just come to life on stage. And this is one of those moments that I'm just like, I love theater. I love theater. This is why I love this medium in particular. So yeah, I did that. It was wonderful. Watched both the things. Unfortunately, the workshop that they did have, they do have in the archive, you have to, like, special request it in a way that I didn't do. And also, even if I were to have done that, which they would have helped me do, obviously I didn't know what I was doing, but they would have helped me if I wanted to special request that. It was being, like, they're doing something with it archive-wise, so it wasn't available, which is totally fine. So I ended up just seeing the Playwrights Horizon production and then the revival. But yeah, so I'm done with that. All my notes are done. I'm taking a little bit of time off because I have to go back out tonight and I'm a little sleepy. But then tomorrow I'm going to reorganize my notes and outline the video and get my questions sorted so that if I end up interviewing people, I will know what I want to ask them and have a general idea of where things are going so I can make the best use of their time. And I'll bring you along on that journey when we get there. Hello! So I just made my outline, and normally I will take all of my disability thoughts and all of those thoughts and I will turn them into more pieces of paper to organize the thoughts and then move them into my Google Doc. But I mean, I had a lot of thoughts, but they were kind of under, like, 3 categories, so it was really easy to just organize them this way instead. Like, when I did Next to Normal, I had so many thoughts and I was so overwhelmed, and so I had to divide them up beforehand and then move them, but in this case I didn't. So basically, the way that this works, I guess it's not important, but we're throwing it in for process purposes anyway, is I, like, put out my bare bones of what I want the thing to look like. So obviously I have my introduction, I always do, and then in this case I'm doing the history of the show first, then the plot, then the original story, then the short film, then the original show, then the revival, and then the disability narratives, and then after that I'll do, like, the now what, how are we going to stage that. So I had that all the way at the beginning. Like, every time I open a new document to start a new one, I will put those bare bones out, and sometimes they move around based on how my research works out. Like, they'll happen in different orders. Like, Hunchback was in a different order than that. Next Normal is a slightly different order than that. So it really depends on the project. But this one kind of felt like it would flow this way. So this is the order that I went. And then I take all those notes from all those pieces of paper and I move them onto here. Unless it's like for Next to Normal, for example, I wrote out, like, every piece of the plot on a piece of paper. I'm not going to type that in just to retype it in a different way, so I just left that on the piece of paper and then I just used that when I was writing the whole thing. But in this case I didn't have a lot of that, so I just moved everything over. So now it's all there, and there's a lot of bullet points, and that outline is like 3-4 pages long. And then I will do the rest of the research I need to get done, and then I will turn that into a script, and I'll bring you along on that process also. Hello! It is July 23rd, which I don't remember when my last video for this was, but it's definitely a long time ago. I haven't looked at my notes for this in quite some time. But I just had an interview, talked to Lee Silverman. She's really wonderful. She directed the Encores production, and the Broadway transfer of the Encores production. And it was great. And I learned so much, and I had this idea of what it looked like in practice and learned that I was completely wrong, which is exactly what I wanted, and it was fantastic, and I learned so much, and I love when that happens, and this is why we talk to people, even though talking to people is really scary, and emailing people and organizing things, terrifying, but it's good. I'm glad that I did it. Anyway, all of which to say, I'm currently working on 4 of these at the same time right now because I was waiting for this interview to happen. I'm waiting for an interview for something else to happen. And that's just part of the chaos. I wanted to include that in here. But now that is it. That was my last interview for this thing. There are other interviews that I forgot to film about because those people were remaining anonymous. So yeah, but that's the thing that also happens sometimes. Which is, like, totally fine. Sometimes people are like, oh, I don't know if I know enough about the show to feel like I should be sourced on it, but I'm happy to talk to you about my experience, those kinds of things. Usually I do those a lot. So I had a couple of those, which is really great, but this is my last one, and now I'm done, and I'm organizing my notes right now, and then tomorrow I'm going to write the whole thing, and I will maybe bring you along the journey of that. Maybe just tell you about it afterwards, because these things can take me like 16 hours to write. They're atrocious. They're so long. But we'll see how this one goes. I don't have as much to talk about this one as I did with like a next to normal, so it might be faster. But we'll see, because I want to get this done soon. This has been a long time and I'm overwhelmed. But yeah, that's my update for today. See you in a bit. So I decided that forcing myself to write about 12,000 words in one day was maybe kind of inhumane of myself to do to myself. So I decided to divide it up into 2 portions this time around, which is much preferred and I will be doing going forwards. So yesterday I wrote the entire like introduction, summary, outline of like all of the productions, adaptation bingo as I call it. I did all that yesterday, and then totally forgot to film it. I'm so bad at vlogging. And then today I wrote the disability analysis section, which took a while. Overall it's about 12,000 words. I was writing maybe 700 to 800 words an hour, so that's like 15 to 16 hours of writing maybe. I normally write faster than that. I don't know why this one took me so long. I think it's because I've been sitting with it for so long and didn't write it. I think next time I'm gonna write a general more of it before I do my interviews, and take extensive time away from it, because it was just really hard to focus on it this time because I'm like almost done researching my next one. So I'm gonna do that differently next time. Hello and happy filming day. This is the setup. We have the ring light that looks too ringy, so I put a thing on it so that it is less that. We have the camera, hi camera, my bad teleprompter, a pile of random stuff, water, fidget toy, extra camera battery, other camera battery is charging, because sometimes I go through 3 when I make these videos. I kind of take forever. Fan, because I'm gonna get hot. I'm wearing a sweater right now for cosplay purposes, and I think I'm gonna end up ditching that pretty quickly in. But yeah, that's, there you go. All right, I'll be back and let you know how long this takes. Post-filming report, it only took me an hour and a half this time. Normally they take me a little longer, so that's cool. Great, now I'm gonna go edit it. It's done, we did it, kids. The final runtime of the video is about 52 minutes. I had an hour 13 of footage to like edit down. We edited it down that much, which just feels like a lot more than what I usually edit it down to, but whatever, that's what ended up happening. It took me just shy of 3 hours. And now I'm going to like do all the, make the thumbnail and do all the other stuff and upload it so that auto captions can go overnight, and then I will caption it tomorrow. So happy to report that I'm finished. It is noon. It's noon on the final day. I spent 2.5 hours this morning captioning. I'm now done captioning, and that is the last step in the process. So we are complete. 2.5 hours is a little bit more time than I was expecting. It usually takes me about 30 minutes to caption every 15 minutes of video, and it was only a 54-minute video, but also I've been cooking at the same time, so that's partially my own fault. But yes, I'm done. It's over. We did the whole video. So I need to close out this one. Thank you for watching this little vloggy vlog. If you have questions about process, about things that I keep in mind while I research, or like anything else, I don't know. I don't know what parts of this were interesting, what parts weren't. But let me know what they are in the comments. I'm happy to answer things. Hope this was somewhat interesting. I don't know. And yeah, that's it. I will catch you in the next one.